The next three are numbers 356, 301, and 355. So if you have one of those three tickets, raise your hand and Stacy or someone will get to you. Okay, back here in the corner.
In the bleachers.
Cheap seats. Good afternoon, Senator Wyden. Thanks again for coming to Wallowa County. We really appreciate your support in doing that. And I'm glad you're sitting down. You're probably thinking, oh boy, here comes another rant and tirade and tantrum about PBMs. And while that's true, that we have discovered an even bigger threat to our ability to provide the outstanding health care here in a very rural setting that we are accustomed to. And that's the manufacturer's onslaught to the 340B program. And the fact that they're trying very, very hardly to implement this rebate program that would result in significant costs to us, and we would have to divert any savings we could actually capture towards, much of it towards administrative fees. And I know I've sent Andrew a copy of what we submitted to CMS when they were open to having
And you
those.
gave me some of the stuff when I was over at your place, right?
I did.
Yep.
And so I'm hopeful that that's still kind of top of mind. I'd have a conversation if you'd like. And I realized that the House is apparently, I realized just this morning, is apparently working on a bipartisan bill that they're trying to put through the chamber called the 340B Secure Act that would look at least pulling in the reins on these manufacturers' efforts to do this rebate until we can look at it a little more carefully and actually come up with a plan that's sensible for all parties involved. So I hope that's something you guys can keep your eyes open for, should it get through the House, and that you would be willing to champion in the Senate.
I'm very supportive of what you're talking about. In fact, when I was a young member of Congress, I looked up the records after I came to your place to see the good work you're doing. I was the House sponsor of 340B. The Senate sponsor was a wonderful guy from Arkansas named David Pryor, and I was the House sponsor. So you bet I'm all in for what you're talking about. And this is another example of how change comes to these kinds of issues. PBMs, these pharmacy benefit managers, you guys heard of these people? So 30, 40 years ago, they made sense because we didn't have all this data, we didn't have all these computers, and we didn't have people who knew all the ways to use them and the like. So these PBMs would show up and they would say to a seniors group or a business group or a church group, we'll take care of ordering this medicine for you. You sign a contract with us, we'll get you a good deal. And for a lot of years, that was the case. But now these PBMs are just getting so powerful and big, they can block all the competition and all the choice. And so we've been reining them in. We finally got, as you know, at least a little bit of coverage for Medicaid, and the early program was a useful one. Stacy got that passed, but there's so much more to do, and the bill you're talking about is the next step to stop the Trump people from using 340B as a vehicle to just help the big pharma crowd. So I'm with you.
Thank you. Next number. Okay, I will draw the next three.
I can take it.
Oh, okay.
Citizens United, I would love for it to go away. And
Gotta use the mic.
Wait for the mic, please.
Is there anything in Oregon legislative to kind of come up with something to counter Citizens United? Like Montana plan, or Hawaii just passed
Well,
their
the Oregon legislature keeps talking about that, but this last legislative session, my reading of the newspapers, because it's a state thing, not a federal thing, they made it easier for big money to come in the state of Oregon. So that's the question.
Yes.
So let's take the issues at the Washington level. Citizens United is one of the biggest, most disgusting acts of Congress ever. It basically says that the rich guy's checkbook is the same thing as the poor guy's soapbox, and it's all free speech that's protected. And that's nonsense, because the rich guy's checkbook gets you a lot more speech than the poor guy's, soapbox. So we've got that problem, and then we've got the Supreme Court, where John Roberts was the tipping, vote, who basically said we're not going to have much of any restrictions at all. And so we're gonna have to be prepared next year to have some major reforms on the Supreme Court.
All right. Be nice if Oregon could kind of get some.
I've actually proposed some changes in the Supreme Court, starting with adding some members to the court, but doing it in a fair way. If a Democratic president gets elected, they get one more. If a Republican president gets elected, they get one more. Let's open the system up and mean that it's got to be more accountable.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next three numbers.
Can we read the last ones just to make sure we got everyone?
It's a ticket scandal.
We were 355, 301, and 356. Okay. Next three, 270, 271, and 269. Any of those three?
People, I can tell you that when we do this with students, because we have some of our town meetings at high schools and the like, the students get reluctant to ask a question. One of them the other day said, "We better ask a question now. The Senate dude is so serious. I bet he'll come to my house and ask it, and my mom will be mad. I'm not coming to your house."
Were you one of those numbers?
One of my concerns is Medicaid 2000, soon. I work at the Wellness Center, and I work with people with developmental disabilities and autism, but I work the whole Wellness Center works with people with mental illness again. Medicaid covers a lot of their services, and then also, what about the nursing homes? What's gonna happen with, like me, when I need one, you know? I mean, that's my concern, what's gonna happen.
We'll make a little bit of news because Stacy is doing some good work on this. We are setting out a goal on the Finance Committee to get care for older people, the vast majority of them at their home, because that's where seniors want to be. They want to be home if at all possible. And so if you go to our website, you'll see kind of the outline we're looking at. And probably the biggest obstacle to having care for seniors and disabled folks and others at home, which is what we're looking at, is we need more workers to care for them. And what's called, Stacy's always telling me, you know, the daily living, the acts of daily living, getting dressed and food and bathroom and all this kind of thing. And I'm convinced that properly done, we can get people trained and that there would be a fair number of immigrants that would be interested in this. And it would be a chance to start climbing the ladder in a positive kind of way and recognize they start this way and then move up and up and up. So stay tuned. We'd be interested in your ideas since you're working in the healthcare field. And as I say, this is why I'm in public service, because I think healthcare is so important. I think what Trump did on Medicaid is such an abomination. You saw at those, when he was sworn in, all the billionaires lined up in the back. And all I could think of is that everybody on Medicaid was getting clobbered and they're nowhere to be seen. So we're going to take a real run at some major changes in terms of nursing homes. And everybody should know that much of the nursing home bill is paid for eventually by Medicaid. Because if you have somebody, just take somebody on your block, you know, a couple that always saved and, you know, mowed their own lawns and all those kinds of things so they can have their dignified retirement. What happens is they run out of money and they basically are on Medicaid for the last few months of their lives, and it's not really very good care. Thanks for bringing it up.
Okay, so those last three numbers were 269, 270, and 271. Any more of those? Stacy?
Hello, I'm Craig. Thanks for being here. We are starting up a company. We're doing sustainable housing with hemp, and one of the key components with hempcrete is it's fireproof. And so with the fire danger, it's perfect fit for around these parts. So be a good idea to collaborate. So,
Oregon is really getting into the lead in terms of new materials for housing. I also think laminated timber is going to be a big deal in some office buildings and the like. And I'm happy to get more information on hemp too.
yeah.
Good for you.
Okay, the next three numbers are 298, 304, and 357. Okay, over here on my left.
Senator Wyden, it's been so nice for the last decades to know that I don't have to write to my senators, every other day about my complaints. I'm serious, it's been a stabilizing factor to know that you guys are probably on my side already. But I just want you to know I appreciate that. I'd like to go back for just a minute to J.P. Morgan.
Yeah,
I've been following your investigations
Yes.
of Deutsche Bank and Bank of America, et cetera. And in light of that, I just watched a video yesterday morning about all the things that the federal government can do to me as a senior. I'm 75. If I take money out of my bank account or put money in and some AI factory has decided that it's aberrant behavior on my part and can investigate me. Okay, so I'm wondering why aren't some people from JP Morgan already in jail? Because by the time they gave their report that there was aberrant, there was suspicious activity in Epstein's bank accounts, he was already dead. And so I'm just wondering, it seems like all of that stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm so glad you got all that information, but where's it going? I mean, it seems like it kind of dropped into a black hole somewhere.
that's why what I said from the very beginning is that I was going to take it for as long as it took to really get all the facts to come out. It was a battle every step of the way. The Biden people helped yay amount when they should have done like this, because there were all kinds of things that they were worried about, coming out. And so I got a little bit of what were called the suspicious activity reports. They're called SARS. And I got a little bit of it, and I said, we're going to keep going. So it's, step by step by step. And then finally, a Republican who basically got beat because Trump doesn't like him, named Massey, forced the House to start getting some data, and then the Senate did as well. And since nobody was really going after what I think is the key, I just said I'm just going to go and go and go until we get to the bottom of this. And that's why I've come to the conclusion that the piece that really has been disgusting is those 4 big Wall Street banks knew about this for years and years and looked the other way. There's something called the Bank Secrecy Act. I'm completely convinced they violated that. There wasn't any enforcement.
They did. I just watched a video yesterday morning about, and that the banks can't even tell me that they're filing a report on me. And I was like, I looked at what was coming out at JP Morgan. It's like, $1 million being transferred there, $1 million over there, $1 million over there. Oops. Sorry.
Now you're even stronger.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, the Bank Secrecy Act. I'm just wondering, do you have like a team on this?
Yes.
Your staff?
Yeah, and we recruited them like we were going after Damian Lillard and LeBron James. We said that we wanted to have the best and most aggressive investigative team given what we'd be up against with the Trump years. And so Patricio Gonzalez is our top man on the Epstein Foundation. I talked to him a couple of days ago. I talked to these team investigators constantly so they know that I'm not going to hang them out to dry, because a lot of times they do an investigation and everybody says, well, who's going to protect them, because the government can go after them. But I think we've got this where it needs to be, which is the central problem that nobody's paid attention to is the most powerful financial firms in the country knew about this. They were going along with all these wire transfers, thousands and thousands of them. If you're having trouble sleeping tonight, okay? You can go watch me talk on the Senate floor. And I start off by saying, Donald Trump's made a lot of mistakes, but what hasn't, come out is he did nothing in the face of those thousands and thousands of wire transfers that Jeffrey Epstein made all over the world. They involved girls and foreigners, and there may be national security and money laundering. And so we're just going to stay with it. So we've had to spend a little bit of time in the last few months just trying to keep the doors of government, open. But my investigators haven't let up for a day. I talk to them constantly. And in another couple of weeks, what is the central remedy for the follow the money approach is to go after the banks, those 4 or 5 big ones. Understand, when you hear about banks, these aren't going to be itty-bitty banks in Coos Bay or Wallowa or Eugene. These are going to be the 4 or 5 biggest Wall Street banks who I and my investigators believe looked the other way on what was going on in Epstein, not for a few months, but for years and years and years. I'm determined to get to the bottom of it.
And they waited until he was dead.
Oh yeah, no question.
Okay, thank you. Okay, numbers 357, 304, 298.
Well, they were all sleeping with those damn women.
All right.
They were all sleeping, every one of those damn guys, Margaret, they're all sleeping with the little girl.
All right.
I'm an old lady, and that's what was wrong. They didn't want to say what they were doing.
All right,
That's why we're staying at it now.
we're gonna draw the next 3 numbers.
Not with all these damn old men.
What do you want to look at?
If she's running for office, she's got a good slogan.
Senator Wyden, thank you for visiting again. I work in healthcare, and I think you've spoken to that pretty well. Things are challenging.
Tell everybody what you do.
I run Winding Waters Clinic, so primary medical, dental, mental health,
This
pharmacy.
spouse are legitimate healthcare heroes. Because
Not me.
not very long ago, I would come out there and you guys were solely putting up the flag in terms of what we needed to do to stand up for poor folks and the like. So we're really lucky, and that's a wonderful clinic.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think worse is to come in 2027, as you've already mentioned for Medicaid, and we're working hard to keep together what we've built. And the hospital too, Center for Wellness, if you can do anything to help them not break what we've built, that'd be great. So my question, can I get my question?
No, we're going to have your questions. Stacy needs to know all the things that you're most worried about. Would you get that? Yeah, go.
Absolutely. So my question, I'm raising 2 boys, 17 and 12. I'm super worried about all the gambling and Polymarket and Kalshi and all the opportunities they have through a device, if I let them use it, to gamble, to get caught up in sports betting and other things. It's really scary.
Yeah, huge. And there's starting to be an effort, Democrats and Republicans in Congress are talking about some of the rules, but I think that this thing is way, way out of the barn and it's got to be stepped up. There's an urgency to it. We've had our investigators on this Epstein thing, healthcare, to a kind of disproportionate amount because we're right in the heart of trying to deal with the fact that $1 trillion worth of money is going to, basically, fly away here in a few months after the election, and the Epstein consequences have got to be brought home. But we'll work with you on it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
All right, next 3 numbers, 302, 268, and 352.
Senator, excuse me.
And yeah, you're the commissioner.
I am the commissioner.
Tell us also what you're doing at the commission.
Oh my goodness. Well, I would love to tell you, but it's my 8th day. So I'm pretty sure just trying to find my office is the biggest thing. But no, the commission right now, what I want to do is get obviously start looking at all the budgets, looking at everything, just like we would do with any job that we show up in. What am I actually looking at? And what I found is in 2010, we had a $1.56 million in the PILT or the,
Bill,
yep, exactly. And that was in 2010 for the exact same acreage that we have now. Unfortunately, with costs of replacements of vehicles, maintenance on roads, that amount has not increased. In fact, it's only decreased. We are set to receive 1.4, little bit under $1.5 million. So is there any plans in the works to actually start funding these federal roads, or these federal lands, so we actually can get out there and start replacing bridges and, alike?
your timing is pretty good because I talked about it at the two previous meetings at John Day and also in Union County as well. I think you know I'm the author of the Secure Rural Schools Bill, which has brought Oregon almost $4 billion. This is the money that we used to get from selling timber directly. And so what we're trying to do is say that the future of forestry that is responsible and consistent with the environmental laws will involve 2 lanes. One of them is what I call the safety net lane, which is my Secure Rural Schools Bill with a first of its kind connection to the PILT program, payment in lieu of taxes, because payment in lieu of taxes is still the same thing really as Secure Rural Schools. Came about because the feds own so much of the land. That's how we created the Forest Service. So that's lane 1. Lane 2 is I think we're going to need some additional revenue coming from the forest. And the question is, can we do that consistent with the environmental laws? And I think there's some innovations with sawmills and the like where we can do it. But I'm going to tell you, in my watch, we are not going to throw out the environmental laws to do it. We're going to show that you can make some innovations in technology and improve the sawmills and comply with the environmental laws. So hopefully 2 lanes for you as a commissioner as you try to take your new job and deal with natural resources. But the federal government owns most of our land, folks. That's the way it's been since we created the Forest Service. And the question is, can we do things that are good for the environment and good for the land and help people to make a living? And I'm not prepared to throw in the towel on this. I think we can do it.
Thank you.
Okay, any others from those numbers? 352, 268, yeah.
This side of the room hasn't been heard. Not right.
Yeah, it's not fair. I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, thanks for being here again and all you do for Oregon and the nation. I want to get back to vote by mail.
Yeah.
We got a great system here. I really love it. It's so convenient. I know you're a legislator and you are supporting expanding the vote by mail, but I don't think that's going to pass before November.
No way.
No way, exactly. And I was very, very concerned when the U.S. Postal Service started promoting their draft rule that would require them to use the combined list with Department of Homeland Security and only send ballots out to people that were on the joint list. Now, our Secretary of State, Tobias Reed, has filed a lawsuit against that, so it's kind of held up there. And then other federal judges have kind of put the kibosh, at least for the time being, on that rule going forward. But that was really quite scary. I mean, how the heck could Cody's mother figure out how to conduct an election if we got rid of mail-in voting before November? I mean, we've been doing this.
Figured it out pretty well.
Okay. So, I guess my question is how confident are you in the courts to kind of hold that off until we get through the November election?
Well, it's interesting that you asked the question because over there is Mr. Hank Stern, and he's our staffer who's the expert on all these vote-by-mail issues. And we just stopped, what was it, a couple hours ago at the Imbler Post Office, and I made a spot saying we're going to fight like crazy every single day between now and the election to protect vote-by-mail. And what was sent to Tobias Reed was basically bullying. That's what it was. It was a threat. They knew they weren't going to be able to bring any action. But if they could bully, and Tobias Reed's a tough guy, and he's not going to get bullied, but I'm worried that some other people will. So we're going to be taking the lead and pushing back, and we're not going to let the post office be dragged down. We got rid of the worst guy, but they brought in somebody else who's almost as bad.
Well, I mean, there are obviously constitutional issues
Yes.
about the federal government running elections and where the state has responsibility. But I mean, you're in the Senate, so what can you do about it?
We can make that kind of argument when they bring up bills. I think that if Trump has his way, he's trying to think of what he's going to do when he loses on the SAVE Act. I think he's going to get
Do you
creative.
think there's any chance of a filibuster?
Hold on. I think, you know, I watch my colleagues a lot, and I know when they're worried about their election, and a bunch of them give him votes when, you know, he's going to be watching it and all the rest. But this is something where if they vote for the SAVE Act, if you're a new Republican or something, you're going to be putting at risk your career forever, because millions of women would be really put through the ringer administratively in terms of getting all those papers and all that stuff together. So I think Trump is going to lose on that SAVE Act thing. And then he's going to come back on vote by mail, because really all he has is reapportionment, and it's sort of too late, and vote by mail. And we're going to be very vigilant. And I travel with my little Constitution. I guess it's in my suitcase right now, and I hold it up and saying, look, this is something that is for the states and the localities, not for the federal government. But am I confident that we're home free? Absolutely not. What I'm certain of is that Trump is going to do everything he can to cheat on this election. Every single thing he can to cheat on this election. And we're going to do everything we can to stop it.
So part of the strategy of passing the SAVE Act in the Senate was to get rid of the filibuster. Do you think there's any chance of that, looking at your colleagues across the aisle?
I don't think they want to get near the SAVE Act for reasons of self-preservation. Because, I mean, you always try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And so if you say you're a middle-aged, Republican in the United States Senate, and you're probably thinking about running for president, or who knows what all they think they want to do, you're not going to want to alienate millions of women by putting them through water torture in order to vote. That's my gut.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But the point is the gentleman right about our being worried about this? Absolutely. Do we have to be prepared to fight every single day? Absolutely. And that's frankly why I'm here and having these town meetings. Somebody said, why are you doing all these town meetings? Bet they don't vote for people like you. Somebody said, the dogs and cattle don't even support you. We're a hard no, by the way, on that.
We're gonna get the next question, Senator.
Yeah, is that the next question?
All right. Did we get 302, 268, and 352? Y'all have your opportunity. Okay, the next three numbers, 307, 299, and 354. Two up front here.
Hello, I'm glad that you're here. I'm a grad student, and I'm in my clinical mental health counseling program. I've already completed addictions counseling, and I plan on being a mental health counselor and addiction counselor here in the county. And I am afraid, first of all, the government took away the PLUS program for federal student aid, which has to be paid back anyway, so I don't understand why that was taken away. But once I get out of college, which I've already invested 7 years of my life into, and I have 2 more years to go, I'm afraid that because of the way Medicare and everything is going, that I'm gonna end up counseling in exchange for chicken eggs. So what are we doing for that? I hear the Trump administration wants to basically put people with mental health disabilities in like homes, big homes, kind of like the concentration camps that they've already got, for people that ICE is rounding up. So I'm trying to figure out what my future is going to look like as a counselor.
This has been the day of people with courage speaking up about mental health, because at the last town meeting in Union County, we had a young woman. What staff? How old was she? Maybe 17? 14.
Okay.
She came and she brought her little brother. Came up and talked to me after the meeting was over, and I said, young man, tell me about you. He said he played baseball. We figured out he played third base and all the rest. And he goes, why are you here? Because I'm helping my sister. And they were talking about the concern about Trump making cuts, but going beyond that and talking about how the internet is being used to tell kids to kill themselves and the like. And we talked about things that they could do to protect themselves. So between you and her, this is Courage Day. And I really appreciate your speaking out. And I mentioned already that I led the fight to cut Trump from getting rid of those Samsung monies, the $2 billion, and we won on that. But he'll be back, and I think he's going to be back generally because this is a program that he sees as a social welfare program that is of people who he says are not supporting him, and don't agree with his politics and the like, and so he can get away with this. And I think we just have to keep pushing back again and again for those programs because there are kind of two sides of the one. One of them is kind of a little bit of education and training, and the other is mental health coverage, and Trump's trying to cut both of them. And we know why, because he wants the money for the tax breaks for the billionaires. We're going to take them away when we get the chance. Hopefully that's January. And then we can start trying to make some fair changes in terms of what you're talking about, mental health, and what's this 14-year-old woman. Really, I felt like I was talking to a child because I thought she was like 10. Was so eloquent in talking about mental health and standing up for her brother and standing up for her family. And you're making the same point.
Well, thank you. So you think that you might be able to actually turn this around?
If we get the chance to have some gavels in our hands, I'm making a commitment to spend a tremendous amount of my time on mental health. And so everybody knows, because a lot of people have read about it, the Wydens know about this mental health issue. My brother was schizophrenic. He was the smartest Wyden brother of two, and he would walk the streets at night and we'd be worried he was going to hurt himself or somebody else. So if the phone rang after 10 o'clock at night for years on end, that's what the Wydens were worried about. So this is in our gut to fix this. Thank you.
And I think, was your number called? Right, here also, Stacey.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you for all you do and for showing up there every day that you have to be in DC. An update, I led the Great Mother March this spring, and we walked from Asheville to DC. We arrived in DC on Earth Day, and it was a tremendous experience. I reached out to your staff. They said you were booked, understandably. We will be back Earth Day 2028, 2030, 2032, and 2034.
Here's the first thing we're going to do. Andrew is going to give you his phone number, so the next time you're up to one of these projects, you can call Andrew and nobody's going to let it fall between the cracks.
Thank you. Thanks. All right, Andrew. And I just wanted to say our experience on the march. So we walked through rural North Carolina and Virginia, like on the road. We talked to people. We had like worker guys in pickup trucks stopping, like, what are y'all doing? They were walking this morning and tonight, and they said, God bless. I talked to older people in rural McDonald's, went in to get an ice cream shake. It was super hot. And they were super supportive. The older woman was like, Trump likes to get us all riled up and we gotta stop doing that. And so I just wanna say to everybody and to you as well that what I met on the road, 500 miles, were people who were passionate about getting together and working together and to stop being so polarized. So
a question, just one, because it relates to our friend in the second row who talked about motivating people. Have you ever done anything like this in your life?
No.
Okay, so we rest our case. What we gotta do, what she just described, and did it in great detail and very specifics in terms of meeting people from the Carolinas and people who didn't have money and this and that, made a big difference in her life. So part of what we have to do is just tell people this is the most consequential time for our country we've ever seen in terms of people's rights and protections and the like, and we need people to come off the couch. And here's a sort of exhibit A for somebody who said, I did this, I'd never done this, I never thought about doing it, and all of a sudden, I saw you can make a big difference, and now, she's telling a big crowd at home why it makes sense in her senator.
Well, and there's fighting against, right, which there's a lot to be against right now. But then we also have to remember what we're fighting for and imagining into a future reality where we all are back together in community, not so polarized in being that. So that's what the Great Mother March was.
Could all of you hear that? My friend in yellow talking about Epstein, she was making the point that my investigators are trying to do in this report, is we're trying to say what was done wrong with respect to the banks looking the other way and getting away with it. And here's what we're going to insist on in the future, ending the same arrangements for the Bank Secrecy Act and stuff like that. But she's just illustrating your point as well.
Okay, did we get all of those? One more from that group of three.
Thank you, Senator Wyden, for coming here and answering all our questions. My big concern is immigration and ICE. And one of the main focuses that I really have concerns about, and I can hardly say this, the children that are being separated from their parents and the parents being separated from their children. What's happening with that? Where are we?
The Finance Committee, we're on the point person for the Democrats. You'll see it online. We've got an investigation going because it looks like hundreds of kids are going to be shipped out unless we can block it. And we've been screaming about Trump doing it, and the Senate is pretty busy, and it's our committee, but we're going to fight this like crazy because this is just the beginning. Mention was made about Doge. Somebody brought it up. Here, Doge and all the use of information. That information is, I'm worried it's going to end up in ICE because they collected it and it's going to be used somehow unless we do it, and we're trying to cut it off. And this all comes when Trump has completely walked away from his promises about immigration in 2024. In 2024, people asked about things like you're talking about the presidential race. And Trump says, nobody has anything to worry about. We're going to go after murderers and drug cartels and thieves who are ripping off children. You can go see the commercials and all the rest. And basically, people like us would say, I never heard that. But if he's talking about something that goes after people who are really hardcore criminals, we'll listen to it. And now we turn around and we see kids and priests and, these ICE, tactics and what happened to those people in Minneapolis and the like. That's not like what was said in 2024, and I think we've got to be very much committed to protecting those kids. And I've got two of my best investigators on this plan to ship out 500, young people, and you can see it on our website. Good for you to speak up.
Okay, so we're winding this up. The last three numbers are 262, 305, and 309.
My question about ICE is, when are they going to stop shooting American citizens, arresting American citizens, and throwing them in jail without anything?
Well, after Minneapolis, Trump said we've got to have a kinder and gentler kind of approach, and all of us said baloney. And we're trying to get a set of rules, for example, that are just common sense. For example, your law enforcement people, and they're wonderful folks. Where are our law enforcement folks? They've been all of Oregon's, law enforcement people have something that indicates some identification. And we've said we should have that for this immigration kind of thing. There should be some sort of, rules in terms of identification. We can debate what the best way is to do it and all the rest. But I think the point is we need some rules here. There have not been any rules, and that's resulted in some horrifying tragedies. And remember, come back to what the Trump campaign was all about. He never said anything about talking about going after a nurse like that. What he said is, I'm going after drug thieves and cartels and murderers and rapists and all the rest. And then all of a sudden we see, nurses, dying in Minneapolis. So.
Who believes Trump?
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens in this package. This package is still being negotiated, and some of the Republicans are starting to say, we can't explain what ICE is doing in our community. So we're going to keep pushing. But thank you for bringing it up, because a lot of this is a credibility thing. And they said they wouldn't do this. Now we got to hold them accountable.
Thank you. Okay, over here on the left.
I thought my number would never come up. I want to thank you. This has been very positive for me today, but I am been devastated by what's gone on during this administration. And one of the things is the assault on women, you know, on our domestic violence centers, on nurses who are no longer professionals. Just the thing that the only way we can be worthy women in this administration is if we stay home and take care of our kids. And how can most families get by on one income? It's just not possible. So everything is overwhelming, but I feel like the last hour and a half I've spent listening to you tells me that something's going on, and I'm really glad to hear that.
Well, I don't pretend to have all the answers, folks. And we'll wrap up in a minute or two. But what I know is my parents fled the Nazis in the 30s, and not everybody got out. And I'm not saying that's the same as what we're dealing with, but I feel that we're having our rights being taken away. And I wrote a book last year called It Takes Chutzpah, which is the Yiddish word for determination and grit. And I put a picture of my mom on the front because my mom was the one who got all the German men to start taking Hitler seriously. And I think as I wrap up this meeting, and we will just have a brief kind of closer here in a minute, I see the room getting worried about sitting things out so that our friend in the second row, I don't mean to be picking on you, but you said, you know, your friend won't get involved. I think we should say to our friends, we can't afford not to. The stakes are too great. And we have a person in the second row and your senator, like, who can basically say, and I'm happy to talk to some of your friends. I'd be glad to do this. If you have a group of them, we'll set up a Zoom or I'll come back. One of the two. Zoom's easier, it's faster. We'll try to get people involved. Okay? Thank you for speaking out.
Did we get one more? Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your service, Senator Wyden. I wanted to speak to an issue that hasn't been brought up yet today. I'm a Jewish resident of Wallowa County. I don't feel like the state of Israel keeps me any safer, especially by the mass murder of Palestinian civilians. I understand that you have voted to give some money, at least some, to the state of Israel since October 7th, 2023. I'm curious, I have a two-part question. My first part is, are you still voting to give money to the state of Israel?
Well, the last vote that we had, I said this draws the line and I voted no. And Bibi Netanyahu is the heart of this problem. Bibi Netanyahu, at one time, was a young guy who had an idealistic view with respect to government. And I got to know him a little bit. You know, this was like years and years ago. And that's not him now. What he's interested in is basically using raw, brute power, the military, to keep himself covered and out of prison, because he's under really very significant problems. So there were a group of us. I'm a Jew. I've always tried to work in a way for human rights, two-state solution and the like. That's not what Bibi Netanyahu is doing on these things. So I've made it clear to the Israeli government I've had it. And they better change, and we need somebody there who's going to build on the kind of proposals that were built on human dignity, treating people well, and not having Americans go home at night and see their dollars used for murdering children and reading about it on their phone. Abomination. That answer your question?
I have just one. I have a couple of follow-ups, but mostly it does, yes. And thank you. I guess.
You go right ahead with the follow-ups.
Yeah. So are you committing to not giving any more money to the state of Israel while Bibi Netanyahu is in power?
I can't conceive of giving more money to Bibi Netanyahu.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Do you plan on receiving more AIPAC funding?
Well, with respect to AIPAC funding, I'm not sure what you're talking about because they don't run a PAC. They have Jewish people and Catholic people and Baptist people who all, follow what they're doing, and they make donations and they are disclosed in separate ways, not with the PAC. And I know everybody says AIPAC, it's a PAC, and I get that. But I'm not going to be involved in supporting Bibi Netanyahu, period, end of discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for speaking out. Thank you for speaking out because this is a crucial kind of time. We watch every day in the Middle East. The killing continues to go on, and this is perfect for a kind of wrap up. This is a foreign policy change that needs to be made without any delay. And I have a lengthy closing address. And if somebody who's got a position in the Senate says they're going to give you a closing address, it's your smarts to get out of the room as fast as you can because they are colossally boring. And my closing address is thank you, thank you. This has been a great community meeting. There hadn't been a bad question in the House, not one. And there have been some firsts. The woman who left and said the problem was old men, pretty valid point to me. So this has been an especially good meeting, and I just want to say thank you. Let's give our moderator a round of applause. In rooms full of all kinds of people making a big difference. And I was thinking about the mayor. When I saw the mayor last, he was dealing with the weather situation and doing a great job of it and helping. So just know that we're available, and the Oregon way is to do it like this. And I don't have all the answers. I can cast a vote in the morning in the Senate, and Nancy Wyden calls me up and says, "You blew that one, Buster." It's a bad vote, and very often she's right and I'm not. But this is the way it was supposed to look. And after 250 years, we're taking stock. And as long as I'm honored to represent you in the United States Senate, this is the way we'll do it, at the grassroots level with some accountability. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Senator.